Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here, live at 5, Mondays, the usual. Sorry, I was just taking a minute to open this Sapiens book here and see what was coming up. And it's interesting. It's interesting how things are laid out in this book, and I'm going to read a certain section of it. But first, what I want to do is, I guess we'll call it live on whatever Facebook here. I'm just going to crack this egg. I don't know if any of you have actually or do still and enjoy had raw eggs, or remember if there's anybody in your family that's ever consumed raw eggs. My father did. My father did, and I remember him taking buttermilk when his stomach wasn't feeling well, raw eggs. And so today, I mean, he used to cook eggs, but I was telling him just how healthy raw foods are, and he takes now 2 raw eggs every morning. And I was thinking about what I was going to eat, and I thought, okay, this will be fun. I'm going to actually eat, I guess you could say in some ways drink the raw eggs, but here there's a couple of them, and I guess you can kind of see them in the camera there. Yeah, 2 yolks. Wasn't a double yolk or egg. If you've ever had a double yolk egg, it's really, they're usually much larger and they're much bigger. But anyway, here we go. Now what I like to do is actually chew the yolk in my mouth because I love the taste of yolk, for those who do. And the white really doesn't taste like much. Not at all. Very easy to digest, and there's not the same flavor as it is when we cook foods. When we cook foods, it seems to change to some other flavor. It's actually more how you would identify the foods by the smell of the cooking and the cooked food, rather than, for the most part, the clean tasting food, how foods are when they're actually raw. I know I won't be able to take that all at once, so we'll just finish it off. That's very good, very tasty. But those were actually very large eggs for the farm. They just came from the farm when I picked them up Thursday or Friday. So they're out of the fridge for now, as long as they're not clean, not washed, and not been previously put into the fridge. You don't want to take eggs out of the fridge. If they've been in the fridge or a cooler of sorts, what will happen is when they come out, they will sweat. And in that sweating process, they can pick up bacteria. Now, if they're washed and cleaned, you want to always keep them in the fridge anyway, which is why they are in the store, because they are washed and cleaned. Because the protective area, there's like this, well, you can well imagine. So the hen lays the egg, and there is a membrane, a mucous membrane, that is around the egg that's covering and coating it, and that's there. And when they wash the eggs for store, of course, there's not a lot of people that like to see dirty eggs. What's on dirty eggs? I don't think these shells here are very dirty, so I can't show you. But what's on them? So of the dozen of eggs that I've gotten through from the farm, well, you could have some form of dirt that's there, and a little bit of feathers into that dirt, straw perhaps, and maybe a little bit of hen poop kind of thing. Sometimes you can notice that, and it's similar to bird droppings that way, maybe a little different, but it's usually like a little green or gray or whatever, but it's fine. I mean, it's like compost, right? It's compost. And yeah, that's about it. So what's so healthy about eggs? Well, eggs are actually known as the perfect protein. So let's just say, comparison other proteins to eggs, it's like the perfect protein. When it's not being cooked, there's certain things about eggs that are very, especially in the yellow, cholesterol, good. We know we produce most of our cholesterol. Our brain needs cholesterol, and vitamin E, also in there as well. So besides the amino acids and the proteins that are in there and the whites and the yolks. Now some people are just all for the whites, be it cholesterol. Cholesterol is bad, it's not good for our health, but that's not true. That's you can look that up, whether it's called The Cholesterol Myth and book, by David Rowland that we read in nutrition school, or it's something else. But there's another book. There are books on to show and to explain to you how cholesterol came as the bad guy and how it was continued to be pushed. And primarily that feels like there's medicines to bring down your cholesterol, and there you go, you'd sell medicines. And that seems more the theme of these days, to have certain events or certain understandings, certain things that people should believe and should be fearful of, and then comes in the medicine, right? The vaccine, in some cases here, or other medicines. So there's this problem, which is going to get me to read a few paragraphs of this Sapiens book. Remember, one of my favorite books? Not my favorite books, but here there was a whole section on Sapiens that actually spoke to the agricultural revolution. So for those who may not, I don't know, maybe this is your first time watching it, I'll just briefly describe. So Sapiens is a book. It's been around for a long time. International bestseller. And for those who have an interest, who praised for Sapiens, just in case you want to know why I say not, but per President Barack Obama, probably was president back then, Bill Gates, these two. So Yuval Noah Harari is listened to. I think he's done a lot of interviews. This isn't his first book. I actually have a second one that I'm trying to digest and get through. But interesting book. So a lot of information in here. And in some ways, what I want to say, what I like about it is it's giving away the farm. It's actually telling us things about how things have unfolded, not in a good way. This will get me to talking about the light and dark as well, because there's things that have come out of here that tuned me into the times of the past. And he just so happens to be, what do they say, some, live with it, it's still going to happen, anything. But I don't try to buy that. So this is about the agricultural revolution, where was to turn plants and animals from equal members of a spiritual round table into property. So this is agricultural revolution. This, however, created a big problem. So remember how far agricultural revolution goes. Farmers may have desired absolute control over the sheep, but they knew perfectly well that their control was limited. Of course, it's nature. It's nature. They could lock the sheep in pens, they could castrate rams, they could selectively breed ewes, and yet they could not ensure that the ewes conceived and gave birth to healthy lambs. Nor could they prevent the eruption of deadly epidemics. I like that the phrases of words that he uses in here is interesting. How then to safeguard the the flocks, livelihood of the flocks. So ideally here, this is getting into the gods. So the leading theory that, of course, is according to him, about the origin of the gods argues that gods gained importance because they offered a solution to this problem. Now, my understanding is gods would have come in way before this. This is when they would be foraging and harvesting and stuff like this. But anyway, this is where he's bringing it up, because they offered a solution to a problem. Remember how we're hearing this problem, then there's reaction, and then solution, right? Solution. And this is the whole vaccine thing, is about the solution to the problem that was created, right? So the problem that was created, people were fearful, and and then the solution or the answers come in. So he speaks to this in this case about the gods. So the gods, such as the fertility goddess, The sky god and the god of medicine took center stage when plants and animals lost their ability to speak. And the god's main role was to mediate between humans and the mute plants and animals. Now, I don't think he's ever talked to animals and plants. Now, you know that there are pet communicators out there. So I find it interesting that he is where he is. But anyway, we'll continue on here. So here we go. We got God's mediating, but he uses interesting word because I have never heard of like God of medicine, or the way they go, sky God. Yeah, not heard them that way. So much of the ancient mythology is in fact a legal contract in which humans promise everlasting devotion to the gods in exchange for mastery, in this case over plants and animals. So the first chapters of the book of Genesis are a prime example. Now, my understanding, some of this was written like 6,000 years ago, and we're talking about the old Bible. So 6,000 years ago was the agricultural revolution around then. So there's just interesting things in here. So the first chapter, yes, for thousands of years after the agricultural revolution, so it's saying after, religious liturgy consisted mainly of humans sacrificing lambs, wine, and cakes to divine powers, who in exchange promised abundant harvest and I don't know this is anyway, fecund flocks, probably abundant flocks at the same time. But you know, I thought this was kind of interesting because for thousands of years after the agricultural revolution, and they mention the religion part of it, and we have read in times where there were certain cultures of the past that did sacrificing, right? But it almost seems like they're tying in the religion to the sacrificing and things like that. Religion, we have Christianity, we have different ones. Anyway, it's a very interesting read if you can separate the information that he shares from your believing it that it's true, and just kind of see the different words he's using that almost makes you feel like he knew something was coming in actual fact that way. So light and dark. There is feelings that we have about those words depending on circumstances that we're looking at. If it's spirituality, it might be light, light, good, light, white, light, all good. And then there's the dark, dark side, thinking that that is the evil side. But light and dark exist, and they essentially, for the way I would look at it is, if you're in the dark, you can see out of the dark into the light. Like you have a good viewpoint. If you're in the dark, nobody can see you. And I'm just kind of playing with it. Light and dark exist, and they really, in the duality of our world, both have an equal role. We have light and dark, day and night, right? And when it comes to looking at certain things, I'm going to use the Sapiens book first, the capitalism. Capitalism being as in profit and commerce and all of that, and business. Freedom to do that. Freedom to do that. There's a light side of capitalism. Just saying freedom to do with your creativity, where you're selling it to, how you do the package perhaps. That's the light side of capitalism. People are evolving into useful things. It makes it easier, maybe less work, all the positive things about the inventions that can come out. Now there's a dark side to capitalism, and one thing I'll mention right now is consumerism. So for all the consumerism, the way it's kind of come in a way that make money forever as a company when the product turns over, as in it doesn't last very long, it breaks, quality, or the mindset that they use in marketing and psychology and all of that is you've got to buy the next best model, or model could be fashion in the sense of the fashion fall or something like that. So that's consumerism. That can get very dark in a sense of it's consumerism. It's distracted from what matters most. It means that we have a lot of things in the garbage, perhaps. We have more than we need to put into the garbage, and that runs over any goods, and goods primarily that we buy, where consumerism can be just continuously built in, and the marketing psychology to push people to do that. So you almost want to say, well, it's not just the company, because the people have been at a very deeper level, have been, I don't want to say pushed, pulled, any of that to actually buy and to buy and to buy and to buy. So the train can leave the station and things can grow, where you have not small stores and stores where you could buy, once upon a time you could buy a lot of things, and in one town, in one store, it was kind of a department store, a restaurant, and a hardware store, and all in one. Just like in Ireland, they had the bar up front and the funeral, or let's say in the back. Let's just say the funeral in the back, the service in the back. So they had the bar, and then up at the bar, when I was doing my research for Ireland, that could also be a pharmacy. It could actually have goods and medicines and things also up in where the bar was. So have a drink, get your medicine at the same time. Have a drink, grab the milk for home. I'm not sure, but those kind of things. So it was multi-purpose. But so what happened over time is, however it was mastermind, is to have stores, and to have individual stores, and to have more stores, and to have several stores, more clothing stores. And so capitalism can allow for that, where you just have these creating spaces. Of course, the property manager has to, the builder, the property manager, the owner, the whatever, and then everybody's paying exorbitant rents, and then you have the style, and you have the big this, and you have all this space and everything that makes you feel that, I don't know, you are really getting up there in life. You shop like Yorkdale Mall here in Toronto, if you've ever seen it. It's just, they have continuously brought up the bar as to what this mall in there is just like luxurious. At times you may feel like you are in one of the hotels in Las Vegas. It's that marble and glass and 2 stories and skylights and just like that. And every place has been redone to the 9 when it comes to their storefront and all those kind of things. So light and dark capitalism. But light and dark comes into so many things. Light and dark comes into the education system. Light and dark comes into the government. Light and dark comes into watching news, and to pick and choose. And for the most part, it sounds like, from watching the 60-minute video on H1N1 swine flu debacle, it was more, how would I say, that would have been at times where the reporters were reporters, where they could have their own thinking, and if they wanted to go in a certain direction, and they wanted to call people out on it, and they did that. Now it seems like, gotta be bending backwards to the narrative that's being fed to them. So I've known reporters, and they've left in some ways because of that. There's no freedom to report, or freedom of speech in a sense. What if they want to do, no, we want to hear about this, no, you can't talk positive about this, or you can't talk negative about that. it's owned by corporations. That's more and more what people are finding out, that the media, the Hollywood's owned by businesses. And I'm going to bring up a movie here that came up a couple of times. It probably would come up again. I think I went on Netflix anyway, and it was right there, front and center for me. They probably know everything about me. Not that I watch Netflix very often, but just what I've watched to date. It was right there, right front and center. So the name of the movie is The Social Dilemma, if I'm remembering correctly. I do have it written down here somewhere. So The Social Dilemma. And I'm only halfway through. As I was sipping my lemon water this morning, I just thought it'd be great to, and before I kind of got into my day. So I just find it. And really, what I was meaning about, yeah, they probably know exactly what I like to watch, is the idea that we are the product. So when it comes to social media, it comes to the internet, and you are looking up things, you are watching certain things, acting, liking something, posting something, whatever it is going into this master computer. Now, I've seen this pop in other communication, other documentaries and things where they are speaking to that. Think of the money that has to be made, right? Advertisers. So if they can really understand what you're looking for, it's much easier to manipulate. Much easier to manipulate. But here's the crux of it. The crux of it is we have, now, not so much me. I realize the things that are going on with technology, but all ages are absolutely not exempt from being attached to their phones, having expectations with their phones, wanting to see, getting a high, almost as they said in there, you go to a gambling joint, which I don't gamble, but I have, just go with the crowd, go with the family. And it's like this mystery, suspense, gotta know what happened kind of feeling, and do it again and do it again. But the idea with some of this is there can be ups and downs and volatility about, well, I didn't win. So how does it make people feel when they don't win? Oh, they don't win. Oh, they lost their food money. And so this plays along with it as well. And I don't really think they really care about, although when you watch this movie, you'll see that these people have a conscience, and they are bringing in this information because they played a role in it. They were taught and were in positions where they were putting this in play. But the people are the product. So you have people, and people are buying the data, the product, the whatever's about you, and to learn, well, what colors do you like? Oh, this is selling over here. Oh, they want kind of this. And as you kind of bring people more and more into that addictive, psychologically needing to know, psychologically thinking there's a problem, you might be feeding the problem in certain messages, and nope, the solution pops up, those kind of things. And maybe there's more than just social media and advertising that becomes part of this as well. Maybe Hollywood's part of this. Maybe certain crazy books like this are actually part of it. And it may be, the psyche of this person, the psychology of whatever he's been taught to go down this path, to mention all these things, to frame them in the way he's framed them. But seriously, now I'd burn all the books if it were up to me, to tell you the truth. Nobody's going to be, if people are happy and if people are carrying on and they're learning things and they're experiencing things and whatever, they're not going to be any better off reading this book. Right? They're not. Anyway, that's my opinion. And as I keep saying, everybody's entitled to their opinion. So that's really what I wanted to come on today and speak about the light and dark. And if you're going about your life, if your week, your day, whatever it is, and something comes in, and this is a little similar to pros and cons. Oftentimes something comes up, okay, you want to get this, you want to buy that, What are the pros and cons? And so you weigh out the pros and cons for maybe doing one of three things, and you weigh out the pros and cons for each. Or if you have a choice, you weigh out the pros and cons. So light and dark is a little bit like the pro and cons. Not that I'm saying it's exactly like it, but it comes with everything. Every choice decision that we're making in our lives comes with pros and cons. And this is the idea about anything. So when people got into the name labels to do with vaccines, a PRO this or a ANTI that, the idea was labels. I have a good friend, Roseanne, and maybe she's on now. Maybe she'll come on and listen. But years ago when we were talking about the raw seal oil, it was about gotta get away from labels. Like the labels really start to divide. They really start to complicate. It really makes things boxed in. When we have the labels. So without that and just pros and cons, anybody wants to look at it that way, look at the pros and cons. To me, it's a little bit more grounding than going, they got to be this, they got to be that, because this person says that, and this TV program says that, and, well, the American Medical Association says this. It's like labels, experts, they're all in the same boat. What makes an expert is somebody who knows maybe enough, maybe studied it, but they may have their own path as their own beliefs that are clouding the way they need to look at it, the way they've been told to look at it. Maybe they're not, if they don't follow the narrative within science sometimes, in the science community, then they don't get a job or they get kicked out. They're not useful anymore because they're not following the narrative. And this is important, to take pro and con and see the sides. If it's around safety of a big V word, then look at the pros and cons, right? And it doesn't matter who says it, and it doesn't matter if there is not enough evidence. Okay, this kind of gets me thinking sometimes about math, and so I might as well just say it because it popped in. At times we are being fed information. Now, this is outside the ads, this is whatever, we're fed information. Go, well, really, you should have 10 research resources, published research papers to say the same thing in order for it to be right. And I would call BS on it. That's what I would call. And when people say that, well, you've got to at least, 1,000 people have to be at least saying that it is. Meanwhile, there's 3 good sources that say, here's the side effects from this particular vaccine. So I'm just going to call it out as that sometimes we're fed information that is BS, okay? BS. And part of what I would say is you may have one incidence of, a side effect that you personally know of, like somebody's personal story that they told you. And then you may see published research over here from this 3-letter acronym over here, and this acronym, and this acronym. And they may all be telling you that it is fine. You have to be able to read the research as to what are they saying fine about, and what have they done to say fine, and what's the whole thing. You have to read it all. That's why research papers are tricky, because most people don't know the lingo, and I will claim that I don't. Sometimes I have to look up things, and through the learning of reading things, I have learned more of the language, but at the same time I'll look up something if I need to, but I can gather most of the information now. But the idea is most people can't discern that information, and they know that. They know that. Does it make it easier for people in science to read it and understand more? Absolutely. That's why conditions have labels, because conditions have labels, because it makes it easier for people to know what exactly it is. Posterior this, inferior that, itis this, all those kind of things. So labels do have the benefit. Remember I said about light and dark. Light and dark. The light thing about labels is it's much easier to read and get direction for things when you have the labels. Street signs. Okay? Make it very simple. Street signs. If we didn't have street signs, it wouldn't be as easy. But then there's the dark side of it too, right? So light and dark. Everything has light and dark to it. Everything. Okay? And this is the pros and cons. Pros and cons, light and dark. That kind of thing. So I think that's really all I was going to come in. Let me just see if there was anything. So Netflix movie, I'll post it down below, just at least the name of it, because you would have to have Netflix, but you might be able to source it somewhere. So yes, no, I'm going to talk about that the next time. Oh yes, this is what I wanted to talk about. Is I got the lengthy emails. I feel so sorry for either the principals of the schools or the TDSB or whoever has to write these ongoing lengthy emails with all kinds of links. Great job. Lots of information. Took me 2 hours to go through it, and even then I didn't follow every link. But one particular thing that was of value to me, and I want to share this. So we're moving from the light and dark, but yet there's a light and dark here, pros and cons. What I read in there is the students are going to be screened. Now, they had to download this app, and they've got to go through something, and they've got to complete it, so they get this, what is it, QR code that they're going to be scanned with, and it's like nuts. But part of also is, yes, they're going to have to wear masks, and they talk about the masks, and of course I sent an email to the principal and said, did you know, blah, blah, blah. Nothing, very light though, very light on that. But my main thing really for contacting the principal was the hand sanitizers. So all the people coming into the schools are going to be, they can't wash their hands, so they're going to need to take a squirt of this alcohol, the alcohol, which is, I don't know, 60, 70, 80. But there's these number of hand sanitizers out there that've got certain alcohols in it that are forbidden, that are more toxic, let's say. Alcohol is still toxic if it's ingested. You can go do your research on this. I don't think I have them up. I think I put them into except for this one CDC here. But you can look this up. The adverse side effects, the ingested, and teenagers ingesting, going to the hospital and knowing that that's the case, and ingesting and things. They probably think it's like a shot of gin. It's not a shot of gin. Some alcohol will make you blind. Some alcohol will kill you. Some alcohol will get you buzzed or whatever. But different alcohols, different effects. And there is definitely an effect with this alcohol. No question about it. And they've done, I guess, not all the research, but research is to say, I guess there was adverse effects, and they recorded them. And maybe at times the child may have just vomited, was sick, maybe the parent thought this, so they weren't recorded. So, but what was recorded is listed. I do have the CDC one up, so I'll put it there. But here's the deal. You can look up natural hand sanitizers. So I went in and I spoke to my daughter. She doesn't want to not wear a mask because she doesn't want the hassle and the whatever, because kids are, even though in bold in the email I just read about children not bullying and exempt and all of that stuff about it should be okay. If there's particular children that can't take on off their mask or whatever it is, even teenagers, that's not supposed to be the issue, but that's not what's happening, right? I mean, there's a reason why they keep teaching bullying in school. So my daughter's already witnessed and heard certain people. If people don't have their mask on, we're going to, I don't know, making up this word, plummet them, right? And it's scary, children don't want to be, and in karate, what do? They teach you not to fight. They teach you to run if you can, right? To move away, to get away, not to, to be violent. So homemade hand sanitizer, very easy to make, very easy to make. And you could probably put your favorite essential oil in there, but tea tree oil was ones I saw and other ones where they actually included alcohol. So make sure it's non-alcoholic. But witch hazel, most people aren't aware of witch hazel. The prices have gone up on that because it's used in astringents and things like that. I just use it straight up, witch hazel. Aloe vera, but it can also be left out. Tea tree oil, that is something that's very antibacterial, anti-there. Drops of eucalyptus essential oil. So there's a number of them that work in that field of antibacterial, I almost don't want to say anti there, but let's just say it kills bacteria, which is not necessarily a good thing if you have on your skin. It's actually quite, it's always worth to note here, the alcohol, one of the main issues of alcohol is depleting the skin of its natural oils. And that in itself creates cracks, creates very bad for eczema. Never mind the ingesting and the smelling, going through your respiratory, but just the alcohol itself, because you're supposed to put it on your hand, you're supposed to allow it to dry, and it's drying everything out and killing the bacteria. You and I, the reason, I'll go back to this, the key reason I wash my hands, okay, is not to spread, now especially with food processing, is to spread things on things that they're remaining there, and other things have to come in and break it down. So it's the bacteria you don't want to ingest, okay? Maybe I should probably clarify this a little bit better. Bacteria. In my mind, there's no bad bacteria. However, there are certain things you don't want in your digestive system. And I'll use the simoes example in that the body who's decomposing, so the dead body that's decomposing is creating an environment in its body, maybe different bacteria, maybe this and that, for the body to break down. But that's not for life, that's for decomposing as part of the circle of life. And these doctors went from doing autopsy, so they're right in there, blah, 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 all that, to going to delivering, and these were in hospitals, and this is where the mothers died, where they got the infections. So they're taking that, they didn't wash their hands, they took that and they took it over to the mother, and who knows, they had hands there, whatever, but through the vaginal canal introduced the bacteria from the decomposing. So this is the live environment, is not the environment where you want those types of bacteria. I'm just going to stick with bacteria as a simple word. Over into life. So thousands upon thousands of women died with what they call blood infection, sepsis. And it was introduced, through the vaginal canal. Maybe they were putting their hands up, I don't know. And this happened. But a certain doctor, Simoes, decided, I guess he thought for the better and thought, what can we do? And decided that we're going to try out washing our hands with soap and water. And I guess if there was 10 people that had, women that had passed in childbirth due to sepsis infection, it went down to 1, something like that, 2 or 1, and maybe it was 1 week, 2 another week, but that's how significant it was. But yet the doctors at the other hospitals, this is in Europe, ignored it, completely ignored it for, from what I read in history books, 50 years. So 50 years of delivering birth. Now, not everybody could afford going into the hospital, so fortunately they were the lucky ones that didn't have this happen. But until they got the microscope to see the bacteria being transported, and however that came about, did they give away to washing their hands. So that's what I'm saying. When I'm saying the reason I wash my hands is not to take something from somewhere. So let's just say on the meat, remember, it's an animal that's not alive anymore. Let's just say there's something there, and I would be putting it on a handle, or I'd be putting it on certain things. So the idea, and it was on a surface. So that's the key reason, especially around food processing, is there's a different environment, a different group of bacteria that you don't want to introduce to your body. You're a living body. The meat on the counter, not a living body anymore, or not a living creature, not a living thing anymore. And so that's the issue with it, people. It's not that you have to wash and scrub your skin, right, for the microbes that are on there, the living microbes that are on there. That's not where you need to scrub your skin. So the idea for me in washing hands is just as I explained with the food, with living things, decomposing, different bacteria. They're all good bacteria. And also just the mere fact that, yeah, it's going to leave oils and dirts and grimes. So if you are working in the garden, you're going to bring in the dirt, and dirt's going to go here, dirt's going to go there. And do you want to sweep it up, mop it up, whatever, right? Because you have a lot of dirt on your house, you'll probably welcome the ants, and the ants would feel like they're welcomed if you kept building up dirt, and that's kind of like the environments for those small lovely creatures. So the idea is cleanliness would be the second reason, but it's overboard on what I'm talking about here. Overboard. So the idea, if somebody gets on the subway and they were preparing food and they didn't wash their hands with soap and water, they can only survive for so long, right? So they can only survive for so long. So the key reason of hand washing and the timing of it and when is really the most important piece, right? It's just those two factors. So I wanted to explain that. But back to the homemade hand sanitizer is these chemicals to wash off the natural microbes of your body, to the oils that contain things as well, that help protect your skin from things coming in. Not good. Not good. Not good. So the homemade hand sanitizers, now there was some that were homemade hand sanitizers with essential oils, but they still had the alcohol. The alcohol that we use to clean out our ears when you first get pierced earrings. I got it, but the idea, if the hands were clean and the earring was clean, I wouldn't necessarily have to keep putting that stuff in my ear. In fact, after a while, they started saying that don't do that because it interferes with the healing. Same thing, all about this, all the same thing. But this is distilled water. So eucalyptus, tea tree oil, distilled water, aloe vera, in or out, doesn't matter which, hazel, and in a sanitized glass spray bottle. So how do you sanitize a glass spray bottle? It just reminds me of doing pickling, and you just want to put warm enough water in there, but you got to understand glass breaks, and certain glass will like crack if you have too hot. So the idea is to probably put a little bit of it in there, maybe soap and water. Soap breaks up the oils in there. That's it. So these instructions. So the one that I got was from Lauren Gamble, and basically just homemade hand sanitizer without alcohol. And something's bound to come up. I kind of just give you the ingredients a little bit here, which will guide you, and you know what, I might just look it up easily enough and put it down below. So that's all I have for today, for the most part, other than, let's see if there's anything else. Sometimes I start off with a nice clean piece of paper and I write a few things. The next thing you know, there's another additional thing, and nope, we'll bring this up and that, and then I just have to go with what pops in at the same time. But that's really it. That's really it. 44 minutes on the clock. Yeah, so there's a few areas there. I'll make mention of them I'll edit the comments. So hand sanitizer, those kind of things. And I'll put the links down below there. So there's a couple of links. All Live at 5 videos typically have some links. That's why, I mean, you just have something to do. Go and browse them, because they will give you certain information and that kind of thing. But we'll end it there. Any comments, any questions, any feedback? And this is not for me, it's also for the people that would come on and either watch the video or want to get more out of the video, can add to the video, because I don't have a script, I'm just kind of, I might always, usually I kind of go, oh yeah, I should have brought that up, but I could go on here for hours, just to talk about all the things that kind of would give credence or validity or more meat to this situation. Light and dark could be a ton of examples. So I'm going to end it there in 45 minutes and 19 seconds, and wish everybody an awesome day, and take care. Still all the things around looking after yourself and then looking after others thereafter. But just, be calm, be calm, and do what's comfortable, but do your research, ask questions, and look at things, the pros and cons, pros and cons, not to get that divisiveness in here, and remove labels, biases. And it doesn't matter things come from this side or this person, or, oh, how many times have we hear just in the last note, well, it comes from a doctor. Yeah, well, both sides, pros and cons on a number of things, actually come through science and come through doctors. So there you go. Anyway, don't believe everything you hear, in the sense of sometimes I'll hear certain things, people put down things or put things on pedestals, and that's not what pros or cons are about. It's about taking information from various sources and just, taking note of what it is. Of course, there's more to that. Take care, everyone. Live at 5. We'll come, always Mondays for sure. The next time, I don't know. This is going to be a super, super, super busy week. I've got to upload some courses, some videos into the Academy. Their website was being worked on last week, so I had a little bit of time. But this week and the next week, it'll be very key to actually upload and get right into it. So I look forward to it. So we'll see what happens. I'll come on if need be. But check out the links below. Keep learning, keep well, and we'll see you again sometime. Bye for now.